Okay, this is the lecture for the ninth week. I'm going to tell you how we're going to do the counseling. One of the things that's going on with this COVID-19 thing is that people aren't meeting face to face anymore. The restaurants are closed, movie theaters are closed, and it looks like this is going to go on into 2021. An article that I just read on CNN dealt with mental health in the United States, and evidently there are a lot of people that are really suffering because of the isolation from COVID-19, especially Gen Z people, whoever those people happen to be. I think they're people that are in their 20s and 30s right now. Those individuals, they grew up, they developed with all the social media and whatnot, and all these interactions, all these different interactions, and now, of course, all that's starting to collapse. So one of the things that's going to happen in the future, and it's not going to be that long from now, just in the next couple of years, is that there's going to be a lot of people that require counseling. The counseling shouldn't be too severe. They're mostly suffering from, well, part of the problem is that these individuals, some of these individuals were using their social connections to support their fragile egos or their fragile mental states. And now that support is gone, that physical support is gone, some people are starting to realize their mental illnesses. So in the future, this is going to be really important. Not only that, but of course, it is. We're not going to be able to do this face to face. So there's going to be a lot of counseling online. There's going to be a lot of counseling by telephone. So, what I want you to do, what I want you to see, I want you to practice this. I want you to see if you can do any counseling. Now, the reality is, a lot of you guys have conversations all the time with people. You give people advice, you help them. The essence of counseling is making the client talk. And I don't know if you're the one that dominates the conversation or if you allow your friend or family member to dominate the conversation. But the whole point is to get the other person to talk and to get them to disclose what's really on their mind, to get them to open up. You can do this on Skype or Netflix, not Netflix. What the hell am I talking about? You can do this on Skype or Duo, or there's a Facebook face-to-face platform. What's the other one? Zoom. We use Zoom at the school, of course. I'm not sure if you guys can set up Zoom meetings, but you can do all this on the telephone. As a matter of fact, I had a colleague who started suffering she was in counseling for 18 months, and almost all of her counseling was either by email, long emails. She would complain about something, or she'd talk about something, and then her counselor would reply to her. So this is what I want you guys to do. I want you to do 10 counseling sessions with 5 different people. That's not 50 counseling sessions. I want you to do 10 counseling sessions in total, and I want you to do counseling sessions with at least 5 different people. Now, what we're looking at right here is the discussion screen. As you can see, there are all the discussion questions, and there are all of the questions I haven't dealt with yet, but I will before Tuesday, when I have to turn in my grades. I'll get all that done. I'll get all that taken care of. And those of you who've written papers, I will grade those papers before Tuesday. As you can see, each individual who has turned in a history has that history on the website, on the discussion page. So what we're going to do, and the only way that I have to grade you, and I'm not really going to grade you on the thoroughness of your counseling session, What I'm going to grade you on is the fact that you did it and that you have an idea of what that person's problem is. So what you will do after you finish a counseling session and you've taken all your notes, you'll take your notes and you'll put them as a, what do they call it? I don't know, whatever they call it. Whoops, yeah, there you go. Okay, wait a minute. That's the history. This is Jerome Walker, of course. Let's see if I can do this without destroying anything. Okay, so yeah, I can't do it because my screen isn't the same as yours. But when you create a thread, that's what I want you to do. I want you to create a thread and put your lecture note, or not your lecture notes, put your counseling notes in there. So say that you were counseling Jerome Walker, then you would counsel him twice, and then you would move on to somebody else. Now the problem is that we only have what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8. We have 8 people with who have turned in their histories. You need to do this because you can't counsel somebody. Somebody can't counsel you unless, of course, you have a history. And we don't want. We're not really identifying people by who they really are. We're identifying them by their pseudonyms, the names of their characters. So you need to get these things in. We're going to start next week. And if you don't have your history in by next week, then you can't start. The reality is that I understand how difficult this is. This is the third time we've tried to do this that we've done this online. Sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. The reality is that in the future, if you become a counselor, this may be your major way of reaching out to people is by counseling online. So that's how we'll do it. And you'll create a thread. You'll take your counseling notes and you'll create a thread. And that's how I know that you've done it. And I will give you a grade for that counseling session. And of course, I'm not going to be very critical because we're all starting out. You're all starting out. So I'm not going to try to be critical. I just want you to do it. I just want you to do it so that you can see if this is a direction that you want to go in this discipline. Okay, so there you go. Let me get rid of this and we will start our lecture. I think I have them upside down. It's 12 and 13 today. There we go. And let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 12 is about identifying key problems or challenges. Understanding the client's problems. This can be complicated. This can be very complicated. I've got a quick story to tell you. I think I do. Oh, yeah, I do. I had a colleague when I was teaching down in Mississippi. She had a PhD in psychology. This individual she was about my height. She was about 5'6". She was married to a guy that was almost 7 feet tall. She weighed about 150 pounds maybe. He weighed close to 300 pounds. He was a really big guy. They had met in a he was the son of the preacher at this one church. It was a fairly evangelical church, and she didn't really go to that church, but she wanted to play volleyball, and she was a setter. She was 5'6". So she was a pretty good volleyball player, and they were practicing one day, and he came in for some reason. He got into they were playing church volleyball, and he was in there, and he was on the other side, and he spiked the ball down into her face. Of course, he's almost 7 feet tall. Spiked the ball down into her face and broke her nose. And the relationship started from there. Now, as you can imagine, being brutalized by somebody on a volleyball court is probably not the best. Is not the romantic story that you want to tell. I always found it just a little bit unnerving that this guy smashed her nose. Anyway, they had been married for about 8 or 9 years when I started working at that institution. And we became fairly good friends. There was always something off about him. I felt that there was anyway. He wasn't really very friendly. He was fairly superficial about a lot of different things, and she was really down to earth. She was from Iowa, actually. She went to Northern Iowa. So and we were there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, and they were really good friends of ours, and they used to come over, and in the fall there were a lot of leaves, and we had to burn the leaves, and we'd have big bonfires. Always had a good time with those two, except he was just, there was something going on, something off, something just a little bit off. She taught psychology. She had a PhD in psychology. She's a very good instructor, but what did he do? He was in charge of some strange program, like, a drug counselor, a drug educational program that was kind of fairly superficial. And I always thought, geez, you're working in the high schools and elementary schools in this area, but that doesn't seem like a very substantive job. Anyway, eventually she disclosed to me that she was scared of him, and that he wouldn't let her be out of his sight. He had to know where she was all the time, and so it was a fairly intimidating relationship between the two of them. And eventually, my wife and I, we really like each other, and we trust each other. And so one of the things that happened was that she decided that she really didn't like him that much. That part of their relationship had to do with the fact that he was big and he could protect her. But over the years, he was kind of narcissistic. Because he was so big, and he was a preacher's son. That had something to do with it as well. I mean, you can put all these dynamics together. Anyway, eventually she divorced him and married somebody else. And we still communicate to this day. I send her a Christmas card every year, and she tells me about her family. She didn't have any children, but she married a man who had 2 children, and she helped raise them. Anyway, so there you go. I mean, so problems are complicated. Here, this lady was a PhD in psychology, and she had a really screwed up relationship with her husband, and she wasn't able to articulate it, as weird as that is. It was after I left that she decided that she needed a little bit more freedom, that he wasn't giving her enough freedom. And the problem was that while my wife and I were there, she used us as a crutch. And once we were gone, that crutch was gone. And at that point, she realized how unhappy she was. She was perfectly happy. To interact with normal people at work, and as long as that was what was going on, everything was fine. But as soon as I left, and she didn't have anybody to talk to anymore, everything kind of went south as far as her relationship is concerned, because she realized what was going on. So problems are really, really, really complicated, and sometimes they are. Most people are in denial that there's a problem, so they really don't face their problems, and that's pretty much what she did. She wasn't really happy, but she thought she was supposed to be happy. The process of coming to an agreement on problems and goals involves a thoughtful and complete assessment. It is important to work on what the client is ready to solve, not what the practitioner might think is important. And this is really an important point. And I could have told her, I saw that something was going on. I saw that things weren't really as kosher and as bright as she tried to make them look. But she wasn't ready. She just wasn't ready, and it took the shock of being away from me. I'm kidding. It took her not having anybody to talk to before that she was ready to talk about that. She certainly never talked about it with me. I just saw that something was off. I just saw that something was wrong. Problem exploration. What is the extent of your problem? How is the problem affecting your life? How long has this problem been in existence? How frequently does this problem happen and how bad does it get? What is the cause of your problem? Are you living in an environment that will allow the problem to return? And of course, that's what happened with her. She realized that she needed to do something. She needed to get away from the situation because it wasn't going to get any better. Is the problem worse because you haven't dealt with it? Is this a superficial problem or one that goes deeper, requiring extensive therapy? How urgent is it that the problem be solved? Is it possible that this problem is a symptom of a more serious problem? And this is a really good point. A lot of times a client will come in, I'm depressed. Well, then you have to figure out why they're depressed. And a lot of times the depression has to do with the situation, but they're not ready to deal with the situation. They want to deal with their depression, but it's not going to do you any good to deal with their depression until you take care of whatever the negative situation is. And of course, that's what happened with my colleague. She had a bad situation at home, and as long as she could dissipate that, as long as she could go to work and she was happy. I mean, the crazy thing was that before I got there, she was, we're college professors, so we don't have to spend all day at work. But before I got there, she was spending 3 or 4 hours at work, and she was teaching, and then, she was spending most of her time at home. But after I got there, she started talking to me about this, that, and the other. She started spending more and more time at work. Now, it wasn't that she was madly in love with me. I can assure you that was not what was going on. But what was going on was the fact that she found an outlet, and she wanted to pursue it. And of course, she didn't really face her problem until her support system was no longer there. And at that point, she had to face the fact that she was in a relationship that she was an unloving relationship, a narcissistic relationship. He was fairly narcissistic. This great big guy had always, and I already explained that he was the preacher's son, and that was a huge deal as far as he was concerned, because people always had to look up to him, not because he was religious but because his dad was the preacher. Considerations of any problem include financial remuneration, client time constraints, and practitioner time constraints. So they've got to be able to pay for their counseling sessions. Of course, they've got things to do, and they have to be home at a select time. So there are time constraints as far as they're concerned, and of course, all practitioners have time constraints. You have to schedule appointments and whatnot. Dealing with a crisis, the practitioner might have to act without fully exploring all problems due to crisis status. And if somebody is in a crisis and they come in with high anxiety, the first thing you have to do is try to relieve that anxiety before you get into anything else. The immediate crisis situation will have to be dealt with first before you can address other problems, and that's what I just said. The practitioner may have to be more directive. And when you are dealing with a crisis situation, tiptoeing around the problem isn't going to do you any good. You need to be more direct. This is your problem. This guy is hitting you, and there's a possibility that he might kill you. So we need to remove you from the situation so that we can delve into what your problem, the rest of your problem. So I'm going to put you in a women's shelter where he can't get to you. Crisis situations dealing with interpersonal violence would include murder. That person's not really dead, by the way. Crisis situations dealing with interpersonal violence would include rape. It could include terrorist bombings. It could include crisis situations dealing with major natural disasters would include floods, tornadoes, and of course you guys don't really have tornadoes like they do in the Midwest. This is in Oklahoma, of course. This is the famous Moore, Oklahoma tornado. As you can see, it exploded all those houses. It can include fires. It can include hurricanes, and of course, hurricane just hit Texas and Louisiana. Delta was the name of the hurricane. I know how they feel because we had that derecho, and we had winds that were actually stronger than the Delta hurricane winds, and it broke off all of our hardwoods, all of our trees, the tops of them. Crisis situations dealing with personal loss would include unexpected death of a family member, sudden abandonment of a significant other. A lot of times you're suffering, and then your significant other leaves, and by golly, then you realize, oh, wait a minute, they just took all the money. This happened to me. I was when I was in the service. I had just gotten paid. Back then, we only got paid once a month. We got paid at the end of the month, and I had just gotten paid, and my wife left. And when she left, she emptied out the bank account. She took all the money, and I had just gotten paid, and there was no money in the bank account. My kids were with me, of course, uh, and she. We weren't going to go to the commissary, the store, to buy food until after we got paid. A lot of people in the military, they used to what they call kite checks. So you know you're going to get paid on Monday, so you go to the store on Friday and you write a check, and you know it's not going to clear over the weekend because that's not the way checks used to work anyway. So that by the time the check got into the bank, all your money would be there, and that's used to be called kiting checks. Or I think it's an immediate transfer now, so you just never know. Anyway, that's what happened. So I was kind of, we weren't really getting along. It was good that she left, but then I realized, oh my goodness gracious, I think I did kite a check. I just bought all those groceries. And I didn't have any money. Well, obviously we all survived, and everybody's happy or not happy, however you like to look at things. Dealing with crisis, it is important to stay calm and remember that safety is the first priority. So if a person's in danger, somebody has threatened to injure them or to kill them, the first thing you need to do is make sure that they're safe. Make sure they're safe, and make sure that whoever else in the family is safe. Use skills of listening, asking questions for clarification, express empathy and warmth as much as possible. Seek supervision as soon as possible in case there is something that you have missed. Clients do not see any need to make a change. Working with clients pre-contemplation stage. This is a pre-contemplation stage. Clients do not see any need to make a change. They do not see their behaviors or feelings as a problem. Blaming others for the problem, of course, that's what we do. We're human. Moving from something clients cannot change to something that they can improves efficacy, makes them feel like at least they have some power. A lot of times a client will come to you because they feel powerless, and you need to figure out something that they can actually solve, like where to sleep tonight, and if you can help them with that, that will make them feel more empowered. The more small problems that you can solve, the more empowered they will feel, and then the better able they will be to deal with their major problem. Empathy about problems that are out of client's control is necessary, and of course that has to do with different situations. If the client states that her boss is unfair to her, the practitioner might see her part of the problem as her inability to figure out what she can do to be treated more fairly. The practitioner isn't denying that the client has a problem, merely pointing out the portion of the problem that the client can control. If the client states that the problem is the city's failure to adequately maintain their neighborhood, the practitioner might help the clients to see their part of the problem as their lack of information about how to effectively lobby for services. If a mother is upset because her son is doing poorly in school and wants to make him bring up his grades, the practitioner will accept this as a valid concern and work with the mother to figure out what she wants to change about herself. The mother may be focusing too much on what the child is not doing or may not have encouraged him. She may have not have discussed the problem with his teachers. If the client is a young single mother of 3 children who states that she doesn't have enough money for food and housing, even though she works full time, the practitioner can work with her on her desire for more income so that she can better provide for her family and can tell her about whatever additional resources might be available to help her provide for her family. Motivational interviewing can be very helpful. Motivational interviewing is client-centered counseling that helps clients increase motivation by assisting them in exploring and resolving ambivalence about making changes. People don't like change, and a lot of times they will just go on in the same rut for an extended length of time just because they don't want things to change. It's comfortable not to change, even though that comfort comes with a problem, maybe a very serious problem. It's one of the reasons why people, besides addiction, it's one of the reasons that people don't stop drinking. It's one of the reasons why people don't stop smoking, because it's comfortable and they're used to it and they don't want to change. People don't like change. Rolling with resistance, clients have valid insights and ideas about their situation. Arguments for change are avoided by clients. The practitioner indicates a willingness to work on the problem identified by the client. Resistance often arises when the client is required to see the practitioner. This is very, very common, especially with people that are instructed to come to counseling by a higher authority like a court. This is very common with people who think they're smarter than everybody else. I have had counseling sessions where I got everything wrong. Everything I said was wrong. The strange thing was, I'm thinking of one case specifically. I'll tell you what, I must have been the dumbest counselor in the whole wide world because it didn't matter what I said. It was completely wrong. And I'm thinking, geez, I need to pass this guy off onto somebody that he will agree with. And so I went to see my supervisor. My supervisor said, oh, he does that to everybody. And he said, but I'll see if I can find somebody that wants to take him. Maybe somebody new. So what happened was that he went to see somebody else, and the next week he came back to me, and the problem was that he had complained that I was the only one that was helping him, despite the fact that I got everything wrong. And after that, we were actually able to deal with things. It was just that he was in denial about really having a problem. And when he discovered that he liked me because I did not really argue with him. I just would say something, he would tell me no, and then we would move on to another topic. And then I would give him more information, and he would say no. And it turned out, of course, that most of the things that I had discussed with him before were absolutely true. I mean, it's hard to miss these things. And you can be in denial. That's known as resistance, of course. Motivational interviewing strategy that involves pointing out an incongruity between the client's present behavior and something that they value or want. This may increase the client's motivation to change. The goal is to move the client to contemplating that there is a problem and that they can work on it. And that's exactly what happened with my client. He was just resistant, and as soon as he realized that he was going to lose me as his counselor, at that point he started thinking about maybe he's right. Of course he's right. Yeah, I've been thinking about this. He started contemplating that this was really a problem that he needed to deal with. Identifying discrepancies, a motivational interview strategy that involves, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. Identifying discrepancies. Geez, that was backwards, wasn't it? Uh, there is a readiness to believe there is a problem. This is the contemplation stage, and of course, that's what he had to do in order to keep me as his counselor. He had to admit that he actually had a problem. The client can acknowledge the advantages of changing, but is also aware of the costs. And of course, that was part of the problem. The biggest problem was that as domineering as this guy was, he had a wife that was even more domineering than he was. So he needed to deal with that, and he really needed to talk to her about it. But he was scared of her, and he was scared that she would leave him, which is exactly what happened. As soon as he confronted her, she left. The reality was that, well, it wasn't. It was one of those May-December weddings situations. He was older. He was older. She bullied him, and the reason she bullied him was because the reason she was able to bully him is because she didn't really like him that much. He was kind of a jerk. He was certainly a jerk to me. So as soon as he confronted her, and of course that created all kinds of other problems. Eventually everything turned out okay because she was kind of squirreling away. I mean, she would get into the checking account and she'd take a couple $1,000s, and she was putting it in a bank account. She was putting it in a bank account, and she was planning on leaving him. And what it did, it made him confront the situation before she actually took off with all of his cash. So as things turned out, it turned out about as good as things can turn out in that situation. And he felt better about it. He was kind of narcissistic. I think he may have become suicidal if he hadn't taken care of the situation before she actually left. It caused a confrontation between the two of them, and that's actually was a good thing. Maybe I'm rationalizing. Everything turned out okay. Express empathy, of course, important at all stages of change. You need to express empathy. This provides acceptance. You show the client that you accept them, and that will make them accept you in return. Contemplation stage. I know that you know that your drinking is a problem, but right now stopping seems impossible. I understand that you think it would improve your health if you gave up smoking, but that giving up smoking feels almost impossible. Working with clients in the contemplation stage, advanced reflecting. Oh, that did it right. Client's perspective is essential in advanced reflecting. Identifying values, meanings, feelings, and expectations. Expressions need to be stated tentatively. The purpose is to invite the client to have insight, self-awareness, and/or a deep understanding of his or her situation. It seems like you feel angry because you value communication and he doesn't. You have moved from focusing on the client's husband to identifying what the client values. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the client's values. It sounds like you feel angry because you expect clear directions from your boss. Without clear directions, you feel afraid of making mistakes. You move from focusing on the boss to focusing on the client's need for clarification. The reality is, if somebody else is the problem, there's nothing you can do about that other person, and you can't change somebody that you're not dealing with. All you can change is your client, and of course, your client needs to understand that. You're not going to go and beat up the boss and tell him to start giving better directions. You can't do that. All you can do is make this person feel, find a solution to dealing with the boss's poor directions. It seems like you value open communication and haven't found a way to invite other members of this group to share openly. Moving from focusing on the client, what the client thinks is wrong with the other group members, to focusing on what the client values. I hear that you are frustrated and think this group isn't accomplishing enough. It seems like you really want this task group to do well. Moving from focusing on the client is frustrated about and what they're frustrated about and what the client wants. It seems that several folks in this agency are feeling impatient because the needs of the growing Hispanic population are not being adequately addressed by the agency. It sounds like addressing the needs of the Hispanic population is something many of you value and think is important. Moving from focusing on what is wrong with the services at the agency to what the people in the agency value. I'm wondering if you feel like you aren't getting much recognition at work. Being valued for your contribution seems to be important to your job satisfaction, moving from what the people at work aren't giving the client to what the client wants. I have the feeling that the group really wants to deal with this issue, but you were afraid of hurting one another's feelings, moving from what the group members are afraid of to what they want. It seems like you folks in the neighborhood really want to get this problem solved, but are feeling pretty discouraged right now because the process seems difficult, moving from how hard the process is to what the people actually want. Themes may be related to interacting, behaving, thinking, and or feelings. Seeing patterns can help clients to make changes. A theme is an idea or point of view shared by several people. A pattern refers to consistent ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving. And this is identifying patterns and themes. That is so backwards. Identifying patterns and themes. A pattern might be related to how a client tries to escape, run away, or use some self-defeating behavior. Very, very common. The practitioner can ask the possible connections between problems and thoughts, feelings, ways of coping, and other situations. It is particularly powerful to relate themes and patterns to clients' experience of what is happening in his/her relationship with the practitioner. Clients can begin to identify their roles and problems and begin to set goals. It is important to state and restate goals until both client and practitioner are clear about them. Partializing involves breaking a complex problem into manageable parts. Partializing. Partializing. Practitioner and client can decide what part of a problem should be dealt with first. This may be the easiest, the most painful, or one that can lead to the solvability of other aspects of the larger problem. It is important to remember that the client's perception of what is manageable may be smaller than or different than the practitioner might see as possible. Great. Supporting self-efficacy. Encouragement given to clients that they can solve problems is supporting self-efficacy. The goal is to enhance clients' confidence and capability to cope. Statements that recognize that the clients have already accomplished and identifies their strengths can support their belief in themselves. Problem identification concerns aiding the clients identifying problems clearly. In larger systems, families, different members may understand problems differently. Clients often think of problems as something to stop. They need to change to what they want to start doing. Let me show you why I'm having problems with this. This is how, this is families. See, this should be families different. There we go. Okay. Let me show you why I'm having problems with this. As you can see, all I see when I'm going through this, so that I can change it, I go through on this page, and I don't actually see it in on the full screen. Yeah, see, that's how it works. Ethical considerations, that's why I'm having problems. I apologize. I don't know why I put these things in there. I didn't realize it because, every time I do this, I'm getting ready to, this is right at the end of the book. So I'm getting ready to do counseling. And every time I say, geez, I need to change that, I always forget. So I'm probably going to forget this time too. So if you ever take this class again, you're going to see exactly the same mistakes this time, next time as this time. Ethical considerations in problem identification. Practitioners need to support essential ethical principles related to autonomy and self-determination. Client decisions are influenced by culture, gender, age, and other factors. The practitioner's role is to support choices of clients, even if they feel they should make other choices. And that is the end of chapter 12. Now I hope I didn't do make the same mess out of chapter 13. There's chapter 13. Establishing goals. Okay, so we talked about establishing goals last time. Look, there's a lot of different ways of doing these things, and there's a lot of different ways of asking questions, and everybody has their own voice. Everybody has their own personality. So what I expect you to do is to find your voice. That's what this class is all about. You may be really good at giving people advice. You may be a good talker, but one of the things that you need to learn in counseling is to let the client talk. What you're trying to do is get them to talk. So the trick is to get them to talk, and I have no idea why I can do this. It's just over the years I've developed the voice of somebody who shuts up and lets other people talk. Anyway, there we go. Your name. There we go. Establishing goals. So this is chapter 13. We have one more lecture next week. I'll tackle two more chapters, the last two chapters, and then we will start counseling pretty much full time. You need to get your histories in. There's only 8 in, and I think there's like 21 people in the class. So we're below half, and you really can't start counseling until you do that. So you need to decide that. So let's say get your histories in by the end of next week. End of next week is the 18th, right? My birthday is the 12th. I was born on what used to be Columbus Day. Now it's Indigenous Peoples Day, as weird as that is. So you guys chose my birthday to make it Indigenous Peoples Day. I imagine the only reason you did it was because it was so noxious to celebrate Columbus. I don't blame you. You're born on a day, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. Could have been Hitler's birthday. I think he was born in April, so I'm a little bit happier with Columbus than with Adolf Hitler, I guess. Establishing goals. Oh, maybe. Goals set the direction of work to be done. Clear goals are necessary in planning steps to be taken. They are what clients hope to achieve working with the practitioner. They are the client's vision of what life would be like if their problems were solved. Goals must be mutual, established between practitioners and clients. Practitioners should not try to guide clients. This is their job, not your job. Their job is to make goals. You're not supposed to set goals for them. They may want you to set goals, and the reason they want you to set goals is so that they don't have to even try to achieve them. I just killed a fly on my shirt. Identifying general goals. Satisfactory work depends on practitioners' ability to collaborate with the client. Questions that seek clarification help clients figure out what goals they are motivated to achieve. Exception finding questions are useful. Explore times when the problem was not present. Times when the problem was smaller or less problematic. A good example would be drinking. When did you start drinking? Well, I started drinking when I was 16. How bad of a problem was it when you were 16? Well, I could only get beer 2 or 3 times a month, so it wasn't too bad. Things got worse. I was happy. I didn't get drunk hardly. I only got drunk on those select weekends. Now, of course, my problem is much more severe. I was happier back then. I was in relationships. Now that I'm falling down drunk, I don't have a relationship and I'm not happy. So there you go. That's an example. At the end of work together, what do you want your life to be like? When the problems that brought you here are solved, what do you want to do, to be thinking, doing, or feeling? Problem and solution. When we have finished our work together, what might other people see you doing that you aren't doing now? Tell me about the picture of what you want your family to be like. Popcorn eaters, that's what you want them to be like. Let's pretend that these problems are solved. What differences will you notice in your life? Life is not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance even when it rains. Identifying measurable, attainable, positive, and specific goals. This is known as the MAPS program. Make it possible. The MAPS program makes it possible for clients and practitioners to evaluate changes that have been made. It provides a clear direction and focus for work. Jeez, oh no, this isn't good. Moving from general goals to MAPS goals, will you give me an example of what positive communication sounds like to you? When you have positive communication, will you be doing what you weren't doing now? In what situations do you want to have more positive communication? I want to get better grades, so I will write down each assignment I get this week. Okay, that's a MAPS goal. That's a specific MAPS goal. I want to get better grades, so I will write down each assignment I get this week. I want to lose weight, so I will go to the gym 3 times this week. I want to become sober, so I will attend 1 AA meeting this week. I want more friends, so I will sit next to 2 different people in each of my classes. This is really kind of interesting because I'm really a bashful person. But what I will do, and this is what I do when I came to Dene College. Of course, I didn't know anybody, and I'm different. So one of the things I did, I sat down beside, and I knew the person that hired me, and because I had interviewed with her. But instead of when I first went into a meeting, instead of sitting beside her, I chose another table, a table full of other individuals. Well, it just turns out that the table I sat down with had Wilson, it had Avery, and we had this really neat conversation. And because people saw me talking to the elders, or the people that work up on the 5th floor, they assumed that I was acceptable to them. It was really kind of interesting. So always being around people that you know and people that you're comfortable with, that's nice, but it's not going to allow you to make new friends. And that's how I did it. I really love Dene College, and Wilson and Avery are 2 of my good friends. Maurice Begay, Jeremiah Barber, they're all really good friends of mine. Patrick Blackwater. So that's how I did it. I just sat down beside people I didn't know and started talking to them. I know that's not something that normally happens on the reservation, and it's not something that normally happens with white people that come to the reservation. But I had worked earlier in a tribal college up north. So I knew, well, and up there they're just a little, they have a different philosophy than down on the Navajo Nation. So that's how they do things. They just sit down beside you and start talking to you. And that's what I did when I first came to Dene College. I haven't had any problems, not that I'm aware of anyway. A goal needs to be something that the client believes is possible based on available resources such as time, money, and people power. Establishing a series of small goals helps clients experience success. It is important that the size of the goal seems attainable to a client and reasonable to the practitioner. And these are attainable goals. Okay, wait a minute. Okay. Attainable goals involve changing another person. Time to reach the goal must be relatively proximate to the decision to change. Clients who participate in setting goals are more likely to believe goals are achievable. Goals should be visualized in concrete, specific behavioral terms. College professors are like anybody else. They want to be around people that they know. They want to be around people that they're comfortable with. But sometimes you got to break out of your mold, and you got to just be a little bit bold and uncomfortable, and that's okay. Most of the time it works out. People appreciate the fact that you're willing to interact with them. Example of attainable goals. Your goal is to lose 15 pounds. Would it be reasonable to lose 1.5 pounds this week? Your goal is turn your homework in on time. Would it be reasonable to set aside an hour an evening to do homework for this class? Your goal is to attend AA meetings. Would it be reasonable to acquire a list of local meetings this week? I hear that you want to weigh what you weighed when you were 30 years old. Let's consider first setting a goal that you can successfully reach in a shorter period of time. What do you think would be reasonable? Would be a reasonable and not too hard goal to reach in 2 months. I agree that giving up drinking and going to AA meetings every day is a terrific goal. AA is very good at celebrating each milestone in the process to lifetime sobriety. How about if one of our first goals is going to AA every day for 2 weeks? Does that sound okay to you? It sounds like your group was disappointed in your grade on the big project, and you were determined to start earlier on the next big project. That sounds like a plan that will work. The next project is due 6 weeks from now. What goal would you like to achieve 3 weeks from now related to that project? So the two of you often argue about how to discipline the children, and think it would be better if you agreed on discipline methods. That sounds like a good goal to achieve. Since you would disagree on many aspects of discipline, would it make sense to you to start with a goal of coming to an agreement about what to do when Anne won't spend time on her homework? In this town, you have many people who are homeless, and you want to develop a solution to the problem that will be acceptable to the city council and also to the people who are homeless. I wonder if the first goal might be to create a group of people, including some people who are homeless and some of you who are willing to work on this problem. Great. Positive goals keeps the focus on what the client wants to do rather than what the client doesn't want to do. Now, always think positive. Always move in a positive direction, not deal with a negative. Practitioners can use open-ended questions to help clients to think in positive terms. I want to lose weight, so today I will eat at least 2 servings of fruit. I want to turn my homework in on time, so today I will review all the work I need to turn in this week. I want to make 2 new friends, so today I will say hi to 5 people. If one night at dinner you aren't fighting, what do you think you might be doing? If one day you felt the urge to drink but didn't drink, what would you do instead? What is your vision of what the neighborhood would look like without drug dealers? When you are concerned about how things are going in the group, how would you like to talk to each other about your concerns or hopes? If this agency was functioning in a way that you believe would be effective, what would people be doing that they aren't doing now? Short-term goal, this week I will go to class and write down my homework assignments. Long-term goal, this semester I will raise my grades by 1 level. I got C's last semester, I'm going to make B's this semester. Short-term goal, this week I will speak with 3 new people. Long-term goal, this semester I will make 2 new friends. Moving from general to specific goals, practitioners may decide to approach agreement on problems and goals differently. Some practitioners prefer more general goals. Working on one goal often relates to other goals. Many practitioners find it helpful to establish a written or verbal agreement that describes previous understandings between them and the client. These agreements are developed collaboratively and can be modified as necessary. A good alliance involves monitoring progress in alliance. A good alliance involves a safe, trusting, comfortable, collaborative relationship. It includes an agreement between the practitioner and client about the goals. These set the stage for monitoring work together. There are many valid and reliable scales for measuring the alliance. There are also scales for measuring the outcome of a session or series of sessions with clients. The goal attainment scale is a 5-point scale that ranges from most to least favorable outcomes the client believes are possible. It can be used to identify the level of progress achieved either during the course of work together or at the end. Using the goal attainment schedule for each MAPS goal can be helpful. I want to lose 15 pounds. This week I will eat 2 servings of fruit each day. I want to lose 15 pounds. Next week I will make an appointment to join a gym. I want to lose 15 pounds. The following week I will attend the gym and 3 exercise classes. The next week I will continue at the gym and eating fruit and weigh myself to see if I have lost any weight. If not, I will join Weight Watchers, etc. And that is the end. Okay. So don't forget, you need to get your histories in. Your papers are due now, but if turn them in whenever you can. The most important thing to get done today, or this week, or in the near future, is the histories. You need to create your character and turn in your histories. If I haven't put your history on the discussion board, then you need to email me and tell me. Evidently, I've done something with it. That's a possibility. I lose things from time to time. But it's all in my email, so I'll be able to find it. So I'll see you guys next week. Stay safe. This is midterm. I'm going to turn midterms in on Tuesday. I don't know when I'll grade your stuff, but probably today's Sunday. So I'll probably work on grading tomorrow. So if you want a higher grade, then you might work on your stuff. I'll probably be grading it sometime either tomorrow or Tuesday. Tomorrow is Indigenous Peoples Day. I'm not sure if you guys have something going on. Not a whole lot of Indigenous people up here in Iowa. They're all over by. They're either on the Missouri River. I'm on the Mississippi side. The Mississippi River side. They're either on the Missouri River side or in the middle of the state. They have a casino. The Meskwaki have a casino in Tama, which is kind of interesting. I went to one of their powwows one time. They dance backwards. Stay safe. Sorry about the dogs.